Rachel Blufstein, known simply as Rachel, the poet, is one of the best-known women poets in Israel. She lived a short life, dying childless in 1931 at the age of 41. One of her poems, one of her best-known poets, is named Infertile. If only I had a son, a little boy with dark curly hair and bright, that I might hold his hand and stroll gently, gently, gently on the path of the garden, a little boy. Uri I'd call him, my Uri, soft and clear the short name, a shade of brightness, my dark and handsome boy. Uri I'd call him, my light, I'd call him, I wait for him. Yes, I wait for him. Our next talk, entitled In Pursuit of Parenthood, The Highs and Lows of Fertility Treatment, will be given by Ms. Vera Skvirsky. Vera is a clinical social worker and a PhD candidate at the School of Social Work at Bar-Ilan University. Her studies focus on the mental health of women with fertility problems, and she is the research manager for the longitudinal fertility study and the longitudinal study on mothers of twins and singletons being conducted in my lab. She has published several papers in international journals and presented her work at domestic and international conferences. Please welcome Vera Skvirsky.
In Pursuit of Parenthood. In many societies, including Israel, parenthood is one of the individual's central identities and most salient roles. People tend to perceive it as a natural event that will happen when they are ready to undertake the role, while or after the achievement of other basic missions, such as finding a soulmate or satisfying career goals. But reality sometimes plots a different course. As one mother said, we start out with so many expectations, our own, our parents, those of our society. Sometimes the hardest thing is to be in a position where we recognize the distance between our expectations and reality. I remember that I stopped taking the pill the day after Ronnie proposed. I really wanted to get pregnant even before the wedding. I hoped and waited every month to see the 2 stripes on the stick. Maybe because something inside me knew that it probably wasn't going to be so easy. But it didn't happen. Not even the months after the wedding, the months after that, or the months after that. I wanted to hold our little boy or girl in my arms. I wanted to stop hurting. But the treatments put everything on hold. During that period, I sometimes felt I couldn't have expectations about anything, because nothing was in my hands. Difficulties in the natural capacity to produce offspring often come as an unpleasant surprise and typically arouse psychological distress. In a qualitative study, women described their perception of infertility and their treatment as a struggle, a loss, a failure, a stressor, a painful experience, and an emotional roller coaster. There is a substantial body of literature which relates to the implications of fertility treatment. However, only a few studies thus far have examined the first stage, which is the initial consultation and diagnosis process. To quote Say Mother, there comes that moment when you realize you are a fertility patient. The moment the whole meaning falls on you. You lose part of your naivete at that moment. It caught me unprepared. I couldn't stop crying. At that moment, I understood that I was starting in a path whose end no one could see for sure. Nothing was certain. Fertility treatment didn't guarantee pregnancy, and pregnancy didn't guarantee children. Even though I had dozens of moments of optimism and strength later on, I remember that moment in the parked car and the fear and helplessness I felt. As a fertility patient, I understand. You can never know. Until you hold a healthy baby in your arms, anything can happen. It is important to keep in mind that a couple who comes to their first consultation with a fertility specialist has already experienced the failure to conceive for at least a year. This means 2 things. First, that they acknowledge the problem, and second, that they have a baseline level of frustration and stress even before the beginning of the demanding series of examinations and medical procedures ahead of them. In view of the researchers emphasize the importance of the first consultation, as the psychological distress at this point of time may affect the decision of whether or not to pursue treatment. For example, in the Netherlands, almost half of the patients, according to one study, left before starting any form of actual treatment, with one of their main reasons being emotional distress. In another study, patients who do not pursue treatment have been found to have higher baseline level depression scores than those who choose to embark on the treatment process. Moreover, the first consultation also has the potential to positively impact psychological distress and anxiety by providing more reliable information, and this may help reduce stress and anxiety levels, which in turn may promote the decision to pursue treatment. In view of the relatively scarce knowledge regarding the initial phase of fertility treatments, we conducted a series of studies aiming at revealing contributors to the perceived stress, mental health, and life satisfaction of women after their initial consultation with a fertility specialist. This series of studies was a part of larger-scale research design carried out in cooperation with doctors at Maccabi Healthcare. We examined a host of dependent variables: perceived stress, mental health, comprised from distress, which refers to negative emotional states such as depression, anxiety, stress, loneliness, loss of control, and well-being, which refers to positive emotional states such as happiness, interest, and pleasure. And in addition, subjective well-being, which includes life satisfaction, defined as a cognitive and global evaluation of the quality of one's life as a whole, and positive and negative affect, where positive affect reflects the extent to which a person feels enthusiastic, active, and alert, and is characterized by a state of high energy, full concentration, and pleasure, and negative affect, which is an unpleasant engagement that subsumes a variety of aversive mood states, including anger, guilt, fear, and nervousness. In this talk, I would like to relate to three main subjects derived from our results: women's personal internal resources, women's relationship with their mothers as an interpersonal resource, and the role played by women's age. Starting with the internal resources, we looked at several variables. Hope is characterized both by a cognitive element whereby mental capabilities are used to find solutions for achieving desired goals, and by an affective element expressing the emotional response to the success or failure of such efforts. Self-consciousness, generally divided into two elements, rumination and reflection, with the difference between them lying in the psychological motivation for self-observation. Rumination is expressed in obsessive thoughts and behaviors. It relates to self-consciousness motivated by a sense of threat, loss, or injustice, and does not promote adjustment. Reflection, on the other hand, refers to self-consciousness motivated by curiosity and interest, and is associated with openness, a seeking of intellectual and emotional experiences, a desire to gain insight into oneself, and personal growth. Attachment style, or more specifically the two dimensions of insecure attachment, avoidance and anxiety. People who score low on both dimensions are considered to have a secure attachment style, which is reflected in a global sense of security, trust in others, comfort with closeness and interdependence, and constructive coping with threat and stressor. Attachment anxiety is characterized by a fear of interpersonal rejection or abandonment, a tendency to focus on distress, rumination on negative thoughts, and the adoption of emotion-focused coping strategies. Attachment avoidance is characterized by fear of dependence and interpersonal intimacy, and distancing oneself cognitively or behaviorally from the source of distress. Self-mastery is the extent to which an individual feels control over his life, makes it possible to foresee and control events, and finally, meaning in life, composed of two dimensions, Thank you, Professor Stiger, for the invention of the questionnaire. Presence of meaning which informs individuals' understanding of themselves and their lives and directs their personal projects and through them their general sense of well-being and life satisfaction, and search for meaning which refers to the drive and orientation to find meaning. And regarding these resources, we found that higher hope was associated with less distress and contributed to greater well-being. And contrary, higher rumination contributed to greater distress and lower well-being. Higher attachment anxiety contributed to higher perception of stress and less life satisfaction and the more negative affect. Higher avoidant attachment contributed only to more negative affect. And higher levels of self-mastery contributed to lower levels of perceived stress and greater life satisfaction. And finally, higher perception of meaning in life contributed to lower levels of perceived stress. Moving to the interpersonal resources, as I said before, we chose to focus on the unique relationship in every woman's life, the relationship with her mother. The following lines written by a woman coping with fertility treatments may emphasize the importance of this relationship and its complexity. Dear Mom, my stomach hurts from all the needles stuck into it and the serum shot into it, raising a glimmer of hope that maybe this month will be my month. Mom, I'm scared it won't work. It hurts me to see you cry off on the side and try to encourage me with words that just infuriate me, that hurt me and put pressure on me and make me feel guilty and feel that I'm unworthy in my own eyes and in yours. Dear beloved Mom, I know you want the best for me and that you simply don't know how to cope, how to help and support me in this process I'm going through. I don't always know how to cope with my infertility either, but what I do know for certain is that I need you, Mom. I need your sensitivity, your pampering, your understanding and acceptance. I need you to respect me and understand. And most of all, don't tell me to relax. Mom, I need you so much. Just be there for me, soft and embracing. Hug me like you used to. So we examined 3 aspects relating to the mother-doctor diet, a diet which has received very little attention in infertility research so far. The kind of relationship with the mother, either supportive, colored by emotional support and approval, or conflictual, characterized by discordance, criticism, dominance, exclusion, and pressure. Women's level of self-disclosure to the mother, a complex and dynamic process of revealing one's thoughts, feelings, and experiences to another person. And perceived ways of providing maternal support, referring to 3 types of dyadic support. Active engagement, which consists of including the woman in discussions of her condition, taking an interest in her feelings and behaviors that support problem solving. Protective buffering, which relates to behaviors such as hiding or denying consent and agreeing with the woman to avoid conflict. And overprotection, which implies a low assessment of woman's capabilities, expressed in unneeded assistance, excessive praise of her achievements, and limiting her activities. And what we found was that higher perceived mother's support in the form of active engagement was associated with lower distress and greater well-being, while higher mother's overprotection was associated with greater psychological distress. Women's self-disclosure to the mother contributed to lower levels of perceived stress, and more supportive, close, and warm relationship with the mother contributed to more positive affect. Another significant variable in any discussion of infertility is the woman's age, since medical professionals see a sharp decline in women's fertility at age 35. We referred in our studies to 2 groups of women, below and above the age of 35. Results at first surprised us as they indicated that young women reported higher levels of psychological distress, higher levels of stress, and more negative emotions, but they also reported higher levels of rumination. Differences were also found between the groups in their relationship with their mothers. Younger women reported higher self-disclosure to their mothers and higher perception of mothers' active engagement. Further analysis that we conducted shed light on the age differences in mental health, as rumination fully mediated the relationship between age group and both distress and well-being, and hope fully mediated the relationship between age group and well-being. More specifically, older women displayed less of a tendency for rumination, which in turn was associated with a lower level of distress and a higher level of well-being. In addition, older women displayed more hope, which in turn was associated with higher well-being. Moreover, we found that the link between age group and mental health is moderated by the style of support received from the mother. When maternal support in the form of active engagement was perceived to be low, older women experienced more well-being than younger women. However, no difference was evidenced when the perception of mother's active engagement was high. Also, when maternal support in the form of active engagement was perceived to be low, younger women experienced more distress than older women. Again, no difference was evidenced when the perception of mother's active engagement was high. And finally, when maternal support in the form of protective buffering was perceived to be high, younger women experienced more distress than older women. No difference was found when mother's protective buffering was low. These findings suggest that age brings with it a greater maturity in the form of more secure personal resources and less dependence on environmental support, in our case, the mothers. And to summarize, as we can see, there are internal and interpersonal resources which may help women at the beginning of the demanding process of treatments to reduce stress and enhance mental health. Moreover, considering a woman's age only from the medical standpoint does not provide the full picture, since age plays a role not only in a woman's physiological ability to conceive, but also in her psychological well-being. Also, older women might be expected to be more worried about the effects of their biological clock on their ability to conceive. They also bring with them greater internal resources and independence that enables them to embark on fertility treatment in a state of better mental health. In addition, the findings demonstrate the value of women's mother as another partner, another source of support, especially for younger women. In practical terms, the results of these studies indicate that any intervention for women entering fertility treatment should relate differentially to different age groups and to take into account various internal resources. Furthermore, the mother can play a role in enhancing the woman's mental health and reducing levels of stress. Thus, practitioners might consider the possibility of encouraging close mother-daughter relationship or including the mother as an additional partner in the process, especially regarding younger women. Certain limitations of these studies should be noted. First, they rely solely on self-reported instruments, since we were interested in tapping women's personal feelings. Secondly, these were cross-sectional studies conducted at a single point in time. However, as I mentioned before, we have been following the women who participated in these studies also in pregnancy and early motherhood in order to further understand how or whether infertility shapes their experience. Because, as one mother said, today, 2.5 years after I gave birth, whenever I go to a wedding and dance the night away, I feel a small sense of victory in my heart. I always liked to dance and do crazy things. Then the treatment started, and I come home, and there is a friend's wedding, and I don't know. Maybe I'm pregnant, maybe not. I'm careful not to drink, not to eat sushi or raw fish, not to dance too much so I don't accidentally get elbowed, not to jump around too much because it might not be good for my uterus, not to let anyone pick me up so they don't accidentally drop me, not to get shoved. I'm always being careful. And then I go to the bathroom and the bleeding starts. And at those times, I feel a little cheated. I did everything to make sure it worked. And now again, it didn't happen. So many thoughts, so many decisions around the simplest question in the world, to dance at a wedding or not. It's like even when you are happy, no one knows what's really going on inside. No one imagines the fear and anxiety. Because being a fertility patient is forever. It's every moment and every minute, not just when they are extracting eggs or injecting them. Finally, I would like to express our gratitude to Dr. Eran Horowitz, and I would like to thank Dr. Yosef Azuri, and also Israel Science Foundation and the eHealth Foundation. Last but not least, I would like to thank women who participate in this ongoing investigation, and of course you for listening. Thank you very much.